is on the precipice of permanent drought. Let me say that again. With some scientists saying the region is on the precipice of permanent drought. That's because in 2020, the western U.S. entered the beginning of what scientists called a mega drought, the second worst in 1,200 years, triggered by a combination of natural dry cycle and human-caused climate change. In the past 20 years, the two worst stretches of drought came in 2003 and 2013. But what is happening right now appears to be the beginning stages of something even more severe. And as we head into the summer dry season, the stage is set for an escalation of extreme dry conditions with widespread water restrictions expected and yet another dangerous fire season ahead. The above image is a time series of drought in the western states from 2000 to 2021. This latest 2021 spike on the right is every bit as impressive as the others. But with the notable difference this time around, the area of exceptional drought is far larger than any other spike, with an aerial coverage of 20%. As we enter the dry season, there is very little chance conditions will get better. In fact, they will likely only get drier. So this goes on. I'm going to read this part here. See, right now, the U.S. Drought Monitor places 60% of the western states under 60% of the western states under severe, extreme, or exceptional drought. The season for the extensive drought is twofolding. Long-term dying fueled by human-caused climate change and the short-term La Nina event in which cool equatorial Pacific waters failed to fuel an ample fetch of moisture. So we have that going on. Earth access ships. Let's see if I can get these up here. Oh, and you're not going to let me, are you? Oh, I think I was hesitant. Oh, it's Life Science. Let's go back to that one. I apologize. I thought I had that up, but maybe I didn't. This I don't really care for, but climate change has been altering the Earth's axis for at least 30 years. Climate change has been, Okay, the planet's spin on its axis determined in part by distribution of weight around the globe. In the same way, the spin of a top determined by its shape, satellite data from 2002 and later already show that climate change is altering the weight distribution largely because of melting glaciers and ice sheets have caused north and south poles to drift. Scientists had also observed polar drift in the 1990s, but uncovering the cause of the drift was tricky. Because there was no direct satellite observation of water distribution around the globe from that era. Now researchers have compared possible scenarios of total water distribution around the world that found that the best explanation for the changes to the poles in the 1990s is human-caused. Melting ice sheets combined with groundwater pumping for agriculture altered the water distribution on the planet enough to make the planet's axis shift. Findings offer clues. Studying past climate-driven polar motion said that the study, Suxa Liu, hydrologist and Chinese Academy of Science, I wanted to get that word out. And I'm having a hard time with this because I that's not the only reason. And there was let's see. They also talk about gravity. They also talk about a couple of different things, but once again, it's holding up a narrative that is not completely. I understand what they're doing. I do. I understand. They don't want you to know the Bible's true. It's going exactly where God told you it was going to go. And this is literally the earth preparing itself for something, for an event. And we're going to get into that. We're going to talk about these things in this series. We have to talk about these things. And I'm going to do the best I can. I'm by no means, if you've already listened to any of my shows, you know that I'm not a scholar. But like I said, I'm just going to do the very best that I can. I trust in the Lord that when I first started doing podcasts, I just wanted to reach one. And if that's all I do, then praise his name. So let's move on here. Cargo. Now, I work in manufacturing, have for 28 years. Anyways, and mainly sheet metal manufacturing, welding, fabrication, machining, all that stuff. So having a hard time right now getting materials. This is Los Angeles Times. When was this? I'm not seeing the date. Oh gosh, this was a while. November 2020. So this was talking about a flotilla, almost a dozen cargo vessels sit anchored off the just off the south of Los Angeles. Gosh, I thought this was more of a recent event, but I could be wrong on this. So I apologize on that one. I'll leave it up. I'll put it in the show notes. You can look at that one as well. But let's go over here. U.S. News. U.S. manufacturers grapple with steel shortages. That was the one I really wanted. Soaring prices. Let's see. This was February 17th, 2021. Chicago, Reuters, an aerospace parts maker in California is struggling. This is what I do, is aerospace. And yes, we're busy, but it's going to be interesting going forward. Is struggling to produce cold rolled steel, while an auto and appliance parts manufacturer in Indiana is unable to secure additional supplies of hot rolled steel from mills. Both companies and more are getting hit by a fresh round of distribution in the U.S. steel industry. Steel is in short supply in the United States, and the prices are surging. Yes, they are. I can tell you that for a fact. Unfilled orders for steel in the last quarter were at the highest levels in 5 years, while inventories were near a 3.5-year low, according to data from the Census Bureau. The benchmark price for hot rolled steel is $1,176 a ton this month. It's the highest level in 13 years. Soaring prices are driving up costs and squeezing profit at steel-consuming manufacturers, provoking a new round of calls to end former President Donald Trump's steel tariffs. Our numbers have been reporting that they have never seen such chaos in the steel market, said Paul Nathanson, executive director at Coalition of American Metal Manufacturing and Users. The group, which represents more than 30,000 companies in the manufacturing sector and downstream supply chains, this month asked President Joe Biden to terminate Trump's metal tariffs. Domestic steel mills that idled furnaces last year amid fears of prolonged pandemic economic downturn have been slow in ramping up production despite a recovery in demand for cars and trucks, appliances, and other steel products. Capacity utilization rates At steel mills, a measure of how fully production capacity is being used has moved up to 75% and falling to 56% in the second quarter of 2020, but is still way below 82% last February. Steel shipments are up, but still below last year's level. So, basically, we're having to buy in much higher bulk. So if you were a small facility and maybe you just needed a few sheets here and there, maybe, depending on what you were doing, they're not doing that right now. You have to order in mass quantity right now. They're basically, if you asked for 2 sheets, they're jacking up the price to where you're forced to order at a higher level. And basically they're hoping that sustains you so that they can get their inventory built back up. So the other thing was they did talk about in COVID, the steel mills, which I think we only have 3, 4 in the United States right now. We don't have many. I'd have to go back and look at those numbers, and maybe I did that. And I know I did that in a past show where I was looking at steel mills, and it's insane what we have. What we used to have and what we have now is nothing. We have nothing as far as steel production in the United States. It's mind blowing, but anyways. So here we are. That's going to go through the roof. So what is that going to mean? Well, everything's going to go through the roof. That means everything that you purchase, your vehicles, any sort of material, nails for building houses, aluminum, siding, any of that stuff, you're going to see the prices go through the roof. Let's go over to food shortages. Risk of global food shortages due to COVID has increased, says UN Envoy. And I wasn't going to read that one. This is worldwide. I will put that in the show notes so you can read it. This was The Guardian. And this was literally talking about everything going on in the world markets. The other one that I was wanting to look at, see if I'm sorry, I have so many things up right now. This was the one that was Bloomberg. Markets deep freeze upends U.S. agricultural markets from grains to beef. And this was February 16th, 2021. The deep freeze that left almost 5 million Americans without power is snarling shipments of goods from corn to soybean, shuttering meat plants, and curbing ethanol production. Traders said it is increasingly hard to move grain to ports in the Pacific Northwest, and ice warnings are restricting navigation on the Illinois River. Energy costs soared, prompting some ethanol and soybean processing plants to slow down, said the traders, who asked not to be identified because of the information is private. Cargill Incorporated is curbing energy use, while Archer Daniels Midland slowed production at several locations due to gas shortages. Tyson Foods Incorporation was among meat producers forced to shut down plants in Texas. The Arctic freeze gripping the central part of the U.S. comes just as China is loading up on American crops. Yeah, let me read that again. The Arctic freeze gripping the central part of the U.S. comes just as China is loading up on American crops. The world's largest commodities importer has already brought a record amount of corn, while soybean purchases are running at their fastest pace in 3 decades. Combined shipments of U.S. corn and soybean climbed to a new peak in the fourth quarter, driven by China. I am hearing of delayed shipments of soybean and grain due to the extreme winter weather, said Mike Steelhoek, Executive Director, Lobby Group Soy Transportation Coalition in Iowa. Testimonials point